First of all, I want to pay high respect to lecturer Bonchan Suksiri and hello everyone. My name is Rizal. I'm from Group 5, which consists other 5 members such as Paul Chinmai, Painajana, Nyan Peter, Tandalia, and Sarun Bonobon. In this video today, we are going to present under the story called The Happy Prince. So have you read it beforehand? Anyway, if you haven't read it, you still can learn, can gain knowledge by watching the whole video. So here we go.
So now let's get into the summaries of the stories. This is a stories about a statue of a happy prince and a little swallow. The happy prince was a beautiful statue standing on a tall column high above the city. The statue was covered with thin leaves of gold, and he had sapphires for his eyes and rubies in his sword. One night, a little swallow flew over the city. He was tired and wanted to spend the night between the feet of the happy prince. As he was ready to sleep, just then a drop of water falls on him. It was curious as there was no cloud in the sky. Then another drop of water falls on him. The swallow decides to look for another place. Just then a third drop falls on him. He looked up and saw that these were the tears from the eyes of the happy prince, and the swallow's eyes filled with pity. The swallow asked, "Who are you and why are you crying?" The happy prince told the swallow that he lived in a palace when he was alive and had a kind human's heart. There was no sorrows at all, and his courtier called him the happy prince. After his death, he had been set up high on a high pillar. His heart is made of lead, yet it always weeps when he sees the ugliness and the miseries of his city. He told the swallow that far away in a little street, a little boy of a seamstress is sick. He was crying and his mother could not give him oranges to eat. He asked the swallows to give his rubies to the poor woman, and he obeyed the happy prince, and then he flew and laid the rubies on the table of the poor woman. The next day, the swallow prepared to bid the happy prince farewell as he must fly to Egypt to join his friends. But the happy prince persuaded him to take the sapphire out of his eye socket and take it to the poor young man who is so poor he is freezing in his garret and cannot finish the play that he was writing. The swallow did not want to pluck out the sapphire from his eyes, but he obeyed the prince unwillingly. The next day, the swallow once again said he must leave the happy prince and flew to Egypt. But the happy prince persuaded the swallows to remove the other sapphire from his eye socket and take it to the little March girl who has dropped her match in the gutter and will be beaten if she returns home empty-handed. The swallow didn't want to remove the prince's second sapphire because it would leave the happy prince blind, but the prince insists. The prince becomes blind now, so the swallow decides to stay with the happy prince always. The prince asks the swallows to fly over his cities and tell him what he saw there. The swallow informed the prince that the poor were leading a miserable life. At the command of the happy prince, the swallow took off the golden leaf from the statue and distributed them among the poor people. Now the statue was dull and gray. The frost made the swallow colder and colder, and he was about to die. He flew to the happy prince, who bade him to kiss him on the lip. The swallow fell down and died at the feet of the statue. The little heart of the happy prince broke into two. The next morning, the city mayor passed that way and saw the statue that was looking very ugly. He ordered it to be pulled down. The statue was smelled in a furnace, but the broken little heart would not melt, so it was thrown on a dust heap where the dead swallow was also lying. The god sent one of his angels to the city. He asked the angels to bring him the two most precious things from the city. The angel took the leaden heart of the prince and the dead swallow to God. The God was very happy with the angel. He praised the angel's choice in bringing him the leaden heart of the happy prince and the dead swallow. That was the end of the stories, and I would like to pass it to another presenter.
Hello teacher and hello everyone, my name is Mai. Today I have the great honor of sharing the characterizations and the conflicts of the Happy Prince. Now let's talk about the characterization first. There are three important characters in the Happy Prince. First, the Happy Prince. He was glided all over with the thin leaf of fine gold. For eye he had two bright sapphire and a light red ruby glow on his forehead. He was a happy person when the prince was alive. He lived in the palace and did not know about the human sufferings. After his death, his statue was put up on a high pedestal, and now he could see the miseries of the people all around him. It made him very sad, and he is kind. He sacrificed everything he had to the poor people in the city with the swallow hat. The happy prince is truly happy in his soul that he have opportunity to spread his wealth. Second, swallow. Swallow is a carefree bird that thinks of his own happiness before anything else. He fell in and out of love quickly and moved quickly as well. He worked with the happy prince because he see how much it means to the happy prince to have order. The swallow sacrificed his life for the sake of the prince. The swallow has a kind heart. He could not leave the prince after the prince became blind. His heart became more giving and pure to the point that he chose to have even though he will die of cold. And third, the mayor. He is a rude guy and judges the value of things by their cover. And now let's move to the major conflicts that happen in the story. First, character visits visual self. Happy prince versus happy prince. There is a pain and miseries among the poor in the city. The happy prince is guilty of having lived without shadow and now watch over the miseries of his city and powerless to help his people. And second, character versus character. The happy prince versus the mayor. And the mayor wants to take down the statues and replace with his own statues. And third, character versus society. All society care about its material things. When the statue was shabby and no longer beautiful with the gold leaf, sapphire, and a red ruby, they didn't give any value anymore. And the last conflict is character versus nature, and swallow versus cool weather. Even though Swallow knew that his body could not survive in the cool weather, he still wanted to help people who were suffering and stay with the happy prince to be his assistant because he was blind. And now my part is coming to an end, so let me give the next floor to my other member.
Hello teacher and hello everybody. My name is Jan Peter. My point I'm going to talk next is setting and personification. So let's move on into the setting. The setting of the short story is an unnamed city in the north of Europe, where the statue of the prince stands on the tall column with full of gold cover on his body. The statue is an important landmark in this city, as the swallow noticed it right on arrival. When the prince was alive, he lived in the palace of Sanssouci, where sorrow is not allowed to enter. There are two famous places by that name, one in Haiti and one in Germany. Moving on into personification. Personification also used in those stories where the writer personified the statue of happy prince and swallow as living human being, and counselor symbolize the hidden hero of Victorian age, even if they are not human. The author made them talking with each other like a human communicate with each other because they fit the misery of living creature which human being is ignoring. So that's all my part. Let's pass it into my next presenter.
Alright, thank you, Peter. So again, hello teacher and hello everyone. My name is Saron Mudwad. Right now we will talk about the other element in the story, which is irony. I found two irony in the story. First of all, at last, after dying of the swallow and the rusting of the Happy Prince statues, the mayor ordered to dump them in the dustbin. As there is a statement stated that, "What a strange thing! This broken heart, lit heart will not melt in the furnace." Secondly, the satire part is when the swallow reaches under the statues to hide himself, but he gets drenched by weeping of Prince and he thinks it might be rain. As there is a statement stated that, "What a curious thing! There's not a single cloud in the sky, and the stars quite clear and bright, and yet it is raining." Alright, let's move on to the other elements in the story, which is climax. I also found two climax in this story. It First of all, it happens when the swallow had just stranges to fly up to the prince's shoulder once more time, and he kissed the happy prince's lip on the lips and fell down dead at his feet. A moment later, the leaden heart had cracked and snapped right into two. The prince felt miserable that the swallow hasn't gotten a chance going to Egypt with his friends, besides spending most of the time with the prince, and even those lifted gold couldn't save the swallow life. The second part is of the climate is that the resolutions occur in the last line, where God granted eternal happiness to the bird and the happy prince in the heaven.
Good morning, teacher and classmates. My name is Tanaria. Today is my great honor to present to you about the story of the Happy Prince. My part, which is about the literary elements in the story, consists of simile, metaphor, symbolism, and theme. Now let's take a look at simile. On page 133 in line 4 to 7, the phrase, "He is as beautiful as a weathercock." The writer compared the Happy Prince to the weathercock, as he is beautiful. On line 134, in line 13 to 14, the phrase, "He looks just like an angel." The writer compared the wonderful statue of the Happy Prince to an angel. And on page 138, in line 136 to 137, the phrase, "His hair is brown and crisp, and his lips are red as a pomegranate." This phrase, the writer compared the young man that in a garret, which his lips are red as a pomegranate. And the last one, which is on page 141, in line 213 to 216, the phrase, "The streets looked as if they were made of silver. They were so bright and glittering. Long inside cord like crystal daggers hung down from the eaves of the house." Moving on to the next literary element, which is known as metaphor. As we can see on page 135 in line 43, the phrase, "I have a golden bedroom." The phrase refers to the bird that he has a fine and suitable position with plenty of air, which allows him to sleep comfortably. And on page 141, in line 225 to 226, the phrase, "I am going to the house of death." That is the brother of sleep, is he or not? This phrase means that it was the last saying goodbye words to the Happy Prince, because the bird was about going to die and will not be able coming back to life again as he grew colder and colder of the cold weather. Another literary element in the story is symbolism, and there are three things that we can find in the story as gold, the bird, leaden heart, and dead bird. Gold. Gold is symbolized for the good-looking outside of people like valuable assets such as jewelry. As we can see in the story of the Happy Prince, everyone in the city praised the stunningly nice statue that his whole body was enveloped with fine gold. The bird. The bird is symbolized as a good friend. In the story, we know that the bird was a good and loyal friend to the Happy Prince. He always tried his best to fulfill the Happy Prince's wish. Since the first time, he was determined to fly to Egypt until the last breath of his life. He was still willing to have the Happy Prince and stay with him. And the last one are Lionheart and Datebird. Lionheart and Datebird are symbolized as the most precious things. At the end of the story, God ordered one of his angels to bring him the Lionheart and the Datebird after they were thrown away on a dust heap. And seeing all the Happy Prince and the bird's virtuous actions, which they had achieved to help people in the city, God was deeply moved by their morality and regarded them as the most precious things. And the last literary elements in the story is themes. The themes in the story of the Happy Prince is doing good things without expecting anything in return. To live a life full of happiness and affectionately, we would better live with a kind heart, willing to help everyone around us, such as family, friends, and or strangers, without looking forward to anything in return, because good things will come back to us when we do not expect to receive from. For instance, when the Happy Prince was still full of his body in a statue, and the bird was still alive, they did lots of good things to help people in the city without expecting anything to come back. But unexpectedly, those good actions came back to them due to the compassion of the gods and brought them to stay happily in his garden of paradise. The part has come to the end, and now let's give the floor to Vishal that he will present to you about the reflection in the story of the Happy Prince. Thank you.
Welcome back everyone, I'm Vishal as you all know. Yes, and this is the last part of our presentation, which is about the reflection of the story. So I bring you some hidden message and useful idea. So the first one is be generous as possible as you can. Be generous here means that you are willing to share, to help the other as much as you can without thinking on any payback. When you see a person or people are facing problems, open your heart and make them feel warm by providing acceptable help. They may need money, clothes, food, or even motivation. So try to find out whether you can help. Have you noticed that you will see your world is more beautiful just a blink of eyes after you help someone? Yes, I think of course. Moreover, it will deliver you a happiness smile on your face and those people's as well. So just like in the story, after the shallow had the seamstress, it suddenly felt warm, for it had done a good deed that had warmed its heart. Additionally, the Happy Prince is described just as a statue, but he had a kind heart and he tried to help his poor people by sacrificing his skin, eyes, and even his life. Moving on to the next hidden message, is about true friend never let you alone. So based on the story, I can assume that the Happy Prince and the Shallow are considered to be good friends. Shallow didn't want to make friends at the city at all. It just wanted to rest for a night before going to Egypt. But the god had let it meet the Happy Prince as his new friend. It helped the Happy Prince several times during the painful winter until the Happy Prince blinded. It would have gone to Egypt, but it didn't migrate to. Guess what? Because it had considered the Happy Prince as its best friend already. So could it leave its blinded friend? And could you? It decided not to move to the warm place, but it decided to sacrifice its life below the Happy Prince's legs. What would you answer to the question that asks, what can be inferred after the Shallow had died? Did it touch your emotion? For me, the Shadow can be inferred to be a real friend, a real and a loyal friend, and it's not only touch my emotion, but as in the story, it also touch the statue's emotion. Therefore, if you find a true friend, try to save him or her for the rest of your life. Another important hidden message is that the outside beauty does not that matter, but the inside of the beauty does what really matter. So let me ask you a question first. What beautiful objects can you see or feel in the story? The reed, the shallow, or the happy prince? Maybe the happy prince, since his whole body had covered by fine gold. For eyes, he had two bright sapphire and a large red ruby glows on his sword hilt. You see how amazing he was. Those things are considered to be the outside of the beauty that are not stable, so they may vanish someday. According to the story, after the happy prince had lost all of his valuable things, he started to be looked down by the people for just being like a beggar. Actually, the real beauty is inside of the statue, and it is stable. So what is it? Yeah, it was the broken little heart of the happy prince. As we all know, even the hot fire could not melt it, because this heart was full of love, kindness, and happiness. No one in the city noticed the most precious, beautiful of the broken heart of the happy prince, but it was noted by the high escort. You see, don't be so silly with your outside beauty. All people have got their own beauty of the outside. It will not stay with you forever. You may lose it just in a second. So try to accept for who you are, and to look at yourself on the mirror to see whether you've got the inside beauty or not. So here's come the end of our video presentation, and we hope you enjoy it and learn a lot from the story. And if you like this video, don't forget to click the like button below. Yes, and thank you so much for watching this video from the first until the end. Yes, have a nice day, everyone. Goodbye.